Well, today we're going to do something a little bit different. We've been in this message series called The Making of a Giant Killer, but we are going to pause that for 1 week and talk about our connection to Nicaragua. It is our biggest international connection in how we live out our faith, leading people to an active faith in Jesus Christ, loving God, loving others, and serving the world. And our connection, I just want to tell you a little bit about it, and then we've got Megan Munslinger here from Rainbow Network, our connection there in Nicaragua. She's going to also just give us a little bit of insight. But we started our connection with Nicaragua in 2006, and I went there 11 years ago to kind of see with my own eyes, and see if it might be a partnership that we wanted to pursue, and I was changed. It impacted me in a very powerful way, and so we started that partnership with a little community called Las Rosas. And Las Rosas is a community of about 100 families that live on a coffee plantation. And here's the thing about that. You may picture coffee plantation. Oh, that sounds kind of neat in a rural setting, in a tropical area. The people that live on this coffee plantation work there, and they are bought and sold with the land. What do you call that? Yeah, it's modern day slavery. Nicaragua is the second poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, second only to Haiti. And whenever you hear something like that, you got to wonder why. Why is it in such a bad place? Why is it so poor? And a number of factors that kind of weave themselves together in any situation like this. One of those factors is that for centuries it has been ravaged by other countries for its natural resources. It is rich in so many natural resources, and it's just been ravaged over the centuries. It's been torn apart by civil wars. It has been scarred by corruption in government and business. It's been hit by hurricanes and earthquakes many times. And whenever those things happen, who suffers the most? It ends up being the rural poor. The rural poor. But here's the thing. I'm proud to say that what we have been doing there over the last 11 years is making a difference. I've been there 3 times, made 3 trips, and every trip that I've made, I have seen people who are physically healthier than the last time I was there. They seem to have more hope, they seem to have more joy, and they definitely have a lot more self-reliance. They're able to do things for themselves. It has been pretty amazing to see. And how we have partnered and helped them, I want to make sure and emphasize this every time we talk about it, is not by giving them just temporary relief or handouts. We have partnered with them in a way that restores them with dignity, where they are invested in it. We're helping to provide that long-term restoration that we believe is so important. 3 years ago as a church, we took a huge step of helping 50 families relocate off the coffee plantation into homes of their own. So as a congregation, we stepped up, covered the cost of those 50 homes at $5,000 each to build. And anytime we talk about that, I got to remind us too that these are not freebies that they receive. That is not healthy to receive freebies over and over again in anybody's culture in any way. It just fosters more poverty. So when people, they work actually to build their own homes, and they cost $5,000, they have to pay back that loan over time. And in order to pay back the loan, in order to be in the program, they also have to have received a micro loan to start a small business, so they have an income besides picking coffee when coffee is in season. So they're in it. They invest in this. Many of these families that we help to relocate, they've been living on these little tiny patches of land that where coffee wouldn't grow. You know, on the coffee plantation, they're throwaway pieces of land. That's where the people live. And they cobble together houses out of whatever they can find. This is a picture I took on one of my trips of a typical house. Actually, this is a pretty good looking house from some of the ones I saw. They cobble them together with whatever's available: mud, sticks, tin, plastic sheeting, whatever they have available. And people sleep in these homes. They sleep in hammocks. They sleep on the floor. We got a picture. That's a pile of wood. Wood is a valuable resource, so you don't just leave it laying outside. You put it inside your home. There's a front of a little bit of a hammock that you see there hanging in the forefront of that picture. People sleep on, if they have a bed, it's usually just a bed of boards, planks, most people just simply sleep on the dirt floors of their homes. But through our partnership with the Village of Las Rosas, people who have a home, they have a neighborhood that they own, and it changes their destiny, because not only are we helping with the housing, but we're helping with education, we're helping with nutrition, and we're helping with health care as well. Here's one of our completed homes. That was a kitchen, by the way. I don't know, can we go back and take a look at that? That's a kitchen, just in the corner of the house, and people breathe the smoke all day long. They have a lot of respiratory issues. But here's a picture of a completed home, one of the ones that we helped to build. This is probably a year or more older, or it's a year ago, and so it's grown. They have gardens around them. It's a beautiful neighborhood. The two neighborhoods that we now have sponsored. But this is part of the road for them on self-reliance. You're going to see more pictures as Megan and I talk. But I want us to welcome Megan Munslinger. She is the development director at Rainbow Network. I'll trade places with you. Thank you for coming, Megan. And I got to tell you that all the trips that I've been on, or almost all of them, Megan has been our guide. She makes how many trips a year to Nicaragua through Rainbow?
I was down there about 15 weeks last year.
15 weeks. That's incredible. So, I mean, whenever I've gone, she's been that guide, that Sherpa. She's like the mother duck, and all us ducklings follow her around, and she gets us where we need to be. She speaks Spanish. Really, you kind of say you don't, but you speak Spanish really well, and gets us where we need to go, and makes us feel like we're safe and where we need to be at any given time. And she's just an amazing leader at Rainbow Network. But I want to kind of turn it over to you a little bit. To tell people, first of all, how did Rainbow get its start, and what is it? Just a reminder, remind us of some of those important things.
Sure. So Rainbow Network was started in 1995, and it was from a couple, Keith and Karen Jaspers, who had both grown up in the rural parts of Iowa. And so they both grew up very poor, and they both felt like God was calling them, if they ever came into wealth, that they should share it. And so through multiple businesses that they owned over the years, they did acquire some wealth, and so wondering what to do with it. They did a lot of research, and they ended up driving all the way to Americus, Georgia, where they met the founders of the Habitat for Humanity. They fell in love with that ministry, and Keith served on the international board for Habitat for Humanity for several years. And just like here, the families all around the world have to build their house, and then they have a big celebration.
That's kind of the nature of Habitat.
Correct.
You have to put in your sweat equity.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then they have to sign that dotted line agreeing to pay back a loan for that house. And so as he traveled around the world for these celebrations, he saw these families, and every single one of them had people that had chronic illnesses that he knew could have easily been prevented. Very few of them were getting any sort of formal education, and he knew, most importantly, that they had no way to pay back that loan on that house. And so he realized that addressing poverty was so much bigger and so much more than just housing. And so through a lot of prayer and a lot of research, he developed Rainbow Network, and he did it more of a hobby, and people caught on and started giving him funds to help it grow. And so he started in 5 communities right outside the capital city of Managua. And he started doing medical clinics, feeding centers. He has primary schools for younger kids to get tutoring. He was sending kids to high school with the help of a scholarship. He was helping them run small businesses with the help of a microloan, and then he was also developing housing projects in these areas. But as he would do that, here he still had his businesses in the States, and so he realized the importance of really giving the people the bootstraps to pull themselves up out of poverty. And so he would work with them to nominate leaders in each of these communities, and he would train them, and had a few local staff at the time that worked with those people on a regular basis to learn how to run each of those programs. And we would help brainstorm or troubleshoot if there were issues, or just really help them plan, educate them on the importance of these programs, and develop their communities.
You mentioned that he started with 4 or 5 communities. Mm-hmm. How many communities does Rainbow Network have now that they're working with?
As of today, we are working on 144.
144. So about how many people does that reach?
It's about 42,000, probably more than that.
Wow.
But the estimates that we can get is around that.
That is Absolutely amazing. Especially for people who are new, talk a little bit about some of the things that St. Paul's and Rainbow Network have done together over the years, in the 11 years that we've been partnered together.
Sure. So in 2006, right after you came back from your first trip, St. Paul's made a pledge to support the community of Las Rosas. And so over the years, St. Paul's has donated a lot of funds, almost $375,000 over the years, to not only do the primary programs, so the healthcare, the education, and the microloans, but also, as you mentioned, doing 2 housing projects, which was a big chunk of that. Above and beyond that, there's, as of this morning, over 50 students that are sponsored by St. Paul's members, sending these kids to high school and giving them the ability to follow their dreams.
So 50 kids are sponsored right now by St. Paul's people to get them through high school. Mm-hmm. So, we showed some pictures up there of kids going through high school. And what does talk about that. What does a high school education mean to a kid in Nicaragua?
A high school diploma really gives them the key to follow their dreams. And so without a high school diploma, jobs that we would get as a high schooler here as, a cashier or working in a simple store job, they can't do that without that high school diploma. And so even in Nicaragua, they still have gas pump attendants. Even a gas pump attendant has to have a high school diploma. So without that, they're stuck working that seasonal job that their family has been working in for years and stuck in that same cycle of poverty with really no opportunity to get out of it.
Stuck on that coffee plantation.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So 40, you said almost 50? So we had
over 50.
Over 50, a couple
Yes.
folks sponsored this last time around. That is absolutely amazing. Anything else about how St. Paul's and Rainbow Network have worked together over the years? Any other specific things that, like this last November and December, we had another big push for our connection with Las Rosas. What happened with that?
That money was used to finish off the second housing project, so money that was used for land to purchase, to build those 25 houses on in the second project, and then also to build a notorious set of stairs.
Notorious?
Notorious. So in the area where Las Rosas is, it's extremely hilly, and you see these, you see both young moms carrying babies, but then you also see the elderly that have been working in those coffee fields all of their life, and they're slipping on mud 6 months out of the year. And so with the hills that were in that project, we felt it was necessary to build a set of stairs, and everyone in the country seems to have heard about these stairs. Every community wants them now.
So notorious makes it sound like they're bad stairs. Are they? They're
no,
good stairs.
They're
notorious
great.
in a great way.
Yes, they're famous.
They're the St. Paul's staircase, right?
They are.
That's pretty cool. We're known for our stairs.
Yes.
Because stairs go someplace.
They do.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So that was a big piece. And the land cost, I mean, that was just one of those things we weren't anticipating, but because of you would think in a very rural, poor country that land would be easy to acquire. It is not. Tell us a little bit about that.
It's extremely difficult, especially in the area where Las Rosas is with coffee farms. As soon as a piece of property comes up for sale, then one of these farmers snatches it up. And so we have been building in the area for quite a while, and so the owners of these pieces of land have kind of caught on to that, and so they either don't have any for sale, or if they do, then it's extremely expensive because they know that it's a hot commodity. And so it's very difficult to get that. And then also there was a revolution in the 80s and 90s, and so during that time there was a lot of land taken from owners, and there's still a lot of battles to figure out who is the real owner of that land. And so it's just a big legality issue, trying to find clean land.
One of the things that we emphasize around here when it comes to helping relieve poverty or any of those cultural issues that we face is to not just offer relief, but offer long-term restoration. How does Rainbow Network practice that?
We do it in each of the programs that we operate, and so we talked a little bit about how Keith had formed these committees or these leaders when he first started Rainbow. That has continued, and that model serves really well. So there are people that know how to set up for a medical clinic. There's people that know how to ration food and cook for the kids and make sure that they're healthy. We have people that are now educated in these communities that are able to make sure that the younger kids are getting the information and the education that they need. We have people that are running businesses out of their homes, which they never were before. Thinking past today is a difficult issue when you don't know where your next plate of food is going to come from. And so it's really just given that base. And then one of the pieces that we don't really talk about much is you mentioned that the families are paying back a loan for the houses. And you think about them paying back the loan that they're running their business from, or they're paying to see the doctor. All of that goes back in to kind of restore and continue
And allows
Rainbow Network programs to expand.
And one of the cool things I've seen a couple times when I was there, they have the community committee. And so it's not us as Americans going in there and running things. It's really giving them the opportunity to do this themselves. And so the community committee, I got to see a couple times where they're giving out microloans. And people have to apply for the loan. They have to have a business idea. It's very similar to anything we would do here. But when the loan is given out, they're given out in rounds. So maybe 10 people will receive a microloan to start a small business. And the community, then they have to all pay them back before the next round can be given out. So you can imagine what that does, right? There's a lot of positive peer pressure to make sure, hey, you're a little bit behind, we can't do the next round until, what can we do to help you get that ready to go? Is that really how it happens? And
Absolutely. So there's a lot of, whenever they sign their loan, they're saying, not only am I going to pay back my loan, but anybody else in this group should they default. And so they work together, and we've really been seeing them working together even with their businesses. So you may have somebody that's buying a pig and butchering it to sell. And so they'll take the meat around and sell as much as they can, but then whatever they have left over that they can't sell that day, they'll take it to somebody that has a little diner or something like that can buy that and cook it that night to run their business.
So somebody's microloan might be to raise some pig. What are some of the other microloan projects and businesses that people start?
Several of the businesses in Las Rosas are running small stores. So they'll have, you see the pictures of the houses, and they'll have the big window in the front. And so they'll use that kind of as a storefront. And then they'll have basic grains, and they'll have sugar, they'll have rice and beans, they'll have basic toiletries, those sorts of things in that house that the families would normally either go without, or they would have to run into the store, which doesn't really happen. And so that's kind of the little local grocery stores. People will also buy and sell grains. They'll buy and sell bowls or cups. People have gotten into cosmetics or clothes, shoes, pretty much anything that we would go to a store. They don't really have that opportunity out in these rural areas, and so people are able to make businesses or little niches with each of those products.
Being there and being in a place where a woman made clothing, made skirts and dresses, and they make backpacks, sew backpacks and do stuff like that. And tell us a story. There's one, we're going to have a little video here about the pineapple farmer.
So our whole goal is to get people standing on their own 2 feet. And so Camilo is one of our prime examples. And whenever he describes his story, he will say that he lived like the animals. And so he was sleeping in the mud. He didn't know how he was going to feed his children or send them to school. And so when Rainbow Network became a part of his community in Temwa, he jumped on board, and he was the community leader for that area. And so he began working with the people and encouraging them to get involved in these programs, but then he also really got involved with the microloan program. And so over time he started out renting, but then now he's buying property, and now he has about 13 acres that he is growing organic pineapple, dragon fruit, plantains, sugarcane, all of these items. He has a river that runs through it that he's able to dam up so that he has water for his crops. But now he is selling, not only is he selling it to Nicaraguans, but he's also shipping those to the States. And so now the community jokes about, they don't need Rainbow Network anymore. They just need Camilo, because he's able to teach them and give them loans if they need them, or whatever whatever it may be. But he is really the prime example of what our goal is for each and every one of these people.
That's amazing. So, anybody else? Your mouth watering right now? Drooling over here. There's Megan. How was it? Was it good?
It was delicious.
So juicy. Wow. So, is Camilo's life, it's different because of a rainbow connection, going from living in the mud to a successful businessman. How does, one life like his, what impact does his life make on others? In the success that he's had?
it's such a huge testament. Camila will say every time you talk to him about how, you know, these families can pray and pray and pray, and you know, you feel like God doesn't hear you sometimes, and so when these opportunities arise, it's really an answer to prayer for these families. And so he has taken that blessing and he's shared that with his neighbors. And so a lot of the people in the area that he lives grow cabbage, which isn't lucrative at all. And so he has developed these classes, and he'll train them to grow pineapple. He'll give them the tops off of his plants that they can replant and grow whenever they have a piece of land. And so he's really in it for the community and not just for himself. So it's just continues to grow.
One thing you just mentioned about, have you ever thought that you were the answer to someone's prayer? There's some guy like Camilo saying, God, help me, and that in some way or another, us stepping up, we become. Wow, that's pretty cool to think about. Tell us what Rainbow Network's vision is for the future, Megan.
As we work in the communities, you know, we've been in Las Rosas for several years, and even as people become these success stories, there's still people that maybe weren't quite ready to take the step to work with Rainbow Network, to take a risk on signing a loan note, or whatever it may be. And so there's almost a second round of people in these communities.
So you've got the early adopters that have kind of come in, and then there's the next wave of folks like, hey, this could help.
So we continue to withhold our commitment to these communities that we're working in, and wanting to get even more people in those communities, but then also the sky is really the limit as far as communities that we could expand into within Nicaragua. And that would be, our biggest goal is to go in and expand into new communities. And so as these people are paying back these loans, as we mentioned, we're able to use that money in 18 of the communities of those 144 we just started in April.
Oh, wow.
So a brand new region that we're just now working in with sites on a next region. So it's really exciting.
So, you know, today when we talked about this and doing this, it really was, hey, a celebration of the partnership between Rainbow Network and St. Paul's. And we weren't going to just put anything out there for, you know, monetary connections or giving, but we just couldn't help it when there are families and high school students that still need sponsorship. So what can people do today?
There's a few things. First of all, pray. Pray for this continued partnership to grow, for the people to feel the love of Christ through these partnerships. And then also out in just past these doors, there's a great big long table that has several families. Those are all the families that are living in the houses in Las Rosas. And so if you feel like you can give to support one of these families, there's a card that you can even sign that will get delivered to that family and commit to partnering with that family. Another part of the table has students, and so let's get that over 60, 70, who knows where that may go. But the opportunity to sponsor a student and really give them the wings to fly and follow their dreams and change their family forever. And then the last opportunity today is to think about signing up for a trip to Las Rosas. There's a group going down October 8th. And so each time or each group that goes just really invests in the lives of the people of Las Rosas and lets them know that they're not alone in this fight against poverty. They know that there's another group coming, and so they work hard in between these trips just to show the improvement that they're able to make in their community so that they can share those great stories and celebrate with us. So,
anything else that we need to know today that might be helpful?
I think just, you know, every group that goes, and even any time that I'm there in between, the people of Las Rosas just send many thanks and many hugs and kisses, as they say. Thousands of them, just because they know they're not in this alone, and they know that because of the people of St. Paul's, this ministry is able to continue in this community. And so there's the baseball team.
The St. Paul's Angels. I don't know.
Yeah. The
Joplin Angels,
but you know, Rainbow Network has the structure, we have the staff, but we can't continue without people like St. Paul's. So we can't thank you enough for allowing us to continue doing what God's led us to do in these communities.
And thank you for pulling us into that and helping us to have an active faith in Jesus Christ in an international sort of way. On my last trip there, we were getting ready to leave. So we'd been there 4 or 5 days, and we were getting ready to leave. And it's always a bittersweet time. They always have a big celebration for us and lots of picture taking. And one of the guys from our church that went is Jason Hunt. He's actually leading the trip in October. That'll be his 3rd or 4th trip down there. But he and his wife sponsor a high school student and they got to meet him. And the high school student kept saying to Jason through the interpreter, "I want a picture with you. I want a picture with you. I want to get a picture with you." And so they took the picture. But come to find out, the student didn't want a copy of the picture. He just wanted Jason to have that picture so that Jason wouldn't forget him. And that's one of the fears that they have, is that they're going to be forgotten, that this momentum that is generating within them to have this hope and this self-reliance and the possibilities of becoming independent and in the positive sort of way. They don't want to be forgotten. And I can't remember how many people, 2 or 3 people, told me the same thing before I left. They were just so specific to say, "Please don't forget us. Please don't forget us." So we're so glad that you're here today to remind us and to tell them, be our ambassador. You're going next week, is that right? You're heading back down there?
I am.
Let them know that we have not forgotten them, that we have seen their faces, we have heard their stories once again, and we're in it for the long term. We are in it for the long term.
Thank you.
I just think about, just wrap up with one final thought. Jesus said, "I was hungry, and you fed me. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick. I was in prison. You came to see me." And people in the story ask, "When did we see you like this?" And Jesus said, "Whenever you did these things to the least of these, you did it to me. You did it to me." So in our connection here, we're just trying to encounter Christ because he's in those faces of those people. Thank you, Megan. Thank you very much. Let's give a round of applause. So, part of our big picture of us as a congregation being in mission is that, if you can, if you're able, save up your dimes and nickels and quarters and pennies and dollars so that every 4 years you're able to maybe make a trip internationally to a place like this. This is our primary international connection. We focus our energy there. So be thinking and praying about that, and if not this year in October, maybe next year at some point, that you go see for yourself. You go meet the people, and you be that ambassador to tell them, "We have not forgotten you. We have not forgotten you." Let's pray together as we wrap this up. Lord, we want to say thank you for Megan and for Rainbow Network and for the deep connections that we have, the names, the faces, the people, the life change that you invited us to take part in. Help us to continue to do that with strength and joy and passion. And we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.